Hello, let's do the New York Times Medium Sudoku for May 3rd, 2024. There's a link in the description if you'd like to try the puzzle yourself using the same Sudoku pad software I do. And I'm going to get started right now. Okay, so for the medium solves, I take a systematic approach for the purpose of being a teaching aid. So that you know what the most important things to focus on are and what's effective and what's the most effective thing to look at first. I'm sure in your own solves you'll take a bit of a more hybrid approach, and that's fine, but I think understanding the systematic method is very helpful so that you can understand what we're looking for and why. So the first thing we do, let's talk about terminology. This is a cell. There's 81 of them, 9 by 9. There's 81 cells. We're going to be filling every cell with a different digit, right? And those digits don't repeat in any row, column, or box. So what's a row, column, box? Well, this is a row of 9 cells. This is a column of 9 cells, aptly named. And this is a box because these 3 by 3 areas are denoted by bold outlines, and we call those boxes. There are 9 rows, 9 columns, and 9 boxes in the puzzle. Each of them will have the digits 1 to 9 exactly once each, so there are 9 of each digit in the puzzle as well. So it makes sense that there's 9 rows, 9 columns, and 9 boxes. Okay, so that's our terminology. In addition to that, we have bands. A band is a row of 3 boxes, and a stack is a column of 3 boxes. It's just useful terminology because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing band by band scanning. So we're going to start with the top band here, or band 1 if you prefer. So in this first band, what are we going to be looking for? Well, we're limiting ourselves first to looking for local stuff within the band. We're going to be peeking out a little bit, and I'll tell you about that, but not too much. So we want to find band local stuff. That's going to be the easiest stuff to see. And then just spoiler alert, we're going to repeat the exact same thing with stacks because there's nothing special about the orientation of the puzzle. It can always be rotated 90 degrees and it's still a puzzle. It's the same puzzle. So anyway, what are we looking for? Well, the first thing we want to look for is digits that appear exactly twice in the band. The reason for that is every digit will appear 3 times in the band because there's 3 rows and there's 3 boxes, right? Once per row, once per box. That's not 6 times, it's 3 times, right? They share those digits. So like this one here appears in this box and it also appears in this row, right? We're going to get a 1 that appears in this box and a 1 that appears in this row. We're going to have 1 that appears in this box, 1 that appears in this row. So in this case, with the one of them is missing, right? Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. My apologies. Very bad time to sneeze, but can't control that. So we know about 2 of the ones in this band. We need to find the third one in this band. And if you think about it logically, it's going to be in the row and the box that the ones currently aren't in. So this is the row they aren't in, and this is the box they aren't in, which means the 1 is going to end up in one of these 3 cells. You can probably tell that it's not in 2 of those right now, but we're talking generically at this point. So another way we could see that is this box needs a 1, and this one here says not in these 3 cells because we can't repeat in the row. We already have a 1 for the row, can't repeat in the row. This one says not in these 3 cells because we can't repeat in that row, row 2. And so therefore, we are down to these 3 cells that can be 1. So the 4 and the 9, we can't put a 1 in the same cell as a 4 and a 9. So actually there's only 1 place in this box for a 1. And so we can place it. And we call that a hidden single. I had a question yesterday about whether the terms I use are standard. And I do try to use the standard terms within the community. Sometimes there's different terms for the same thing, and I have picked one that I find most useful. But I never use a term that is just completely unknown to the rest of the community. They're usually very popular terms to use. So hidden single, a hidden technique. I wouldn't have named it that way, but I am using the community's names for these things. A hidden technique is one in which in a row, column, or box, we have limited a specific digit to being only in a certain number of cells. Whereas a naked technique is we're looking at a specific cell and we see what that cell has been limited down to, or a group of cells and what that group of cells have each been limited down to. So hopefully that distinction will sink in at some point. I know it's a weird distinction to make, but in this case, this is a hidden single one because there were plenty of other, because There are plenty of other digits that could have gone in this cell, right? It wasn't a naked single one. Like it could have been a 2, right? There's no 2 in the row. There's no 2 in the column. There's no 2 in the box yet. So there's no reason to think it couldn't be a 2, except there is a reason to think it can't be a 2, because if it is a 2, then now this box has nowhere to put a 1 in it. So the box has dictated that we need a 1, and it can only go there, so it must go there. And so that's why it's called a hidden technique rather than naked, because we can't just look at the individual cell and make the determination that it is a 1. So that naked versus hidden, that's going to expand, right? We're going to have naked hidden pairs, naked hidden triples as well. And we'll go over those when we find them. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to find all of the duplicates, not just randomly finding one of them. That's useful. So what we want to do is use a systematic way to do that while you get used to scanning for it, because it is really easy to miss them. So what I do is I pick the box that has the fewest givens. I picked this one to start with. There were 2 options, right? Because this also has 3 givens in it. But you pick the box with the fewest givens. And you compare it against the other 2. So you think about 1, 3, 5, and you're looking for 1, 3, 5 here and 1, 3, 5 here. Don't find anything. That's 2 out of the 3 total comparisons we need to make just right away. And it's easier because we're only having to think about the fewest number of digits. Then now we have to compare these 2 boxes against each other. Again, I just pick the one with the fewest. If there isn't one with fewest, just pick one. It doesn't really matter. Think about the digits, 1, 2, 7. We already found the 1, right? So we don't care about the 1. The 2 and the 7, there is no 2, 7 over here. So that the 1 was the only duplicate. Now, before we move on, there are 2 more things to look for. The next thing to look for in this band is when you have a filled row like this, a filled row within a box. So we call that a box row if you want a term for it. This is a box row. This is a box column, right? It's just where a row and a box intersect is a box row. So if you have a filled box row like this one, we know what all 3 digits are in this box row, then we can kind of think about how we have virtual buddies for certain other digits. So what I want you to do is, when you find that, look at the 2 rows that box row isn't for the band, and in the 2 boxes that the box row is not in. So that's going to be these 12 cells, right? You can kind of see how that works. It's the 12 cells that aren't sharing the row or box. So what we want to do is we can ignore the empty cells, and we can ignore any digits that are already in the box. So 1, 4, 6, or 9. So the 1s are no good. But this 2, 3, and 7 are going to be interesting. We got to pick one to start with. Let's start with the 2. So one way you can think about this 2 is taking 3 digits out of here, but there's some 2 somewhere taking 2 out of these 3 digits, because if it wasn't, there would be a 2 already there, and we know there's not going to be a 2 here. So where would that 2 be that would take the 2 out of these 3? In this row? Well, it wouldn't be in this box, and so it would have to be in this box. So we can think about how there's some 2 over here that was causing these to not end up being 2. And so now we have a buddy that then means there's also a 2 in one of these 2. So just imagine there was a 2 here, right? If there was a 2 here, then I'd have these 2 2s looking in. This wouldn't be 2, and I'd have a 2 in one of these 2 cells. Otherwise, if there was a 2 here, I'd have the same result. So, and that's the only way that's going to happen. Otherwise, I should have a 2 down here. So there's another way to think about this. We can prove this a bit more directly, which is that this 2 looks into this box. These aren't 2. And so there's a 2 in one of these 2 cells. And that means that wherever this 2 ends up, and I'm actually going to start using some notation. Let's actually start introducing some notation here, because we haven't used any notation yet. So this software has 2 kinds of notation, which is really helpful. It has corner marks and center marks. Let me do 2 and, let's pick a digit that'll work. 2 and 5. None of them all work, but 8 will work. Let's do 2 and 8. Okay. So you can see that the 2 and the 8 here ended up in the corners, and then we have also 2 and 8 ending up in the center. So we have corner marks and center marks. What we're going to use corner marks for, just, you can use them for whatever you want, but what we're going to use corner marks to mean that in this box, we have reduced that digit to the cells that the corner marks occupy, and only the cells the corner marks occupy. So we have limited 2 to these 2 cells, so we corner mark those cells with 2s. And that's going to remind us later, because by convention, this is the only reason we use corner marks. It's going to remind us later that, hey, in this box, 2 is limited to these 2 cells. Now that does something interesting in this case, which is it does something called pointing. The way to think about pointing, first of all, the result of pointing, just so you have this contextualized, is that we cannot put a 2 anywhere else in the row because there already is a 2 over here, right? This box needs a 2. It's going to end up in one of these corner mark cells. It'll either be here or it'll be here. We don't know what the other one will be, but we know one of these will be a 2. Those are our only 2 options for this puzzle. We looked at the final solution of the puzzle and we looked for the 2 in this box. First of all, it would have one and it would be in one of these 2 cells. We don't know which one, 50% chance. We're not going to be guessing here, but what we can do is we can say that wherever this 2 ends up, it is in this row, and this row can only have a single 2 in it. So no matter where this ends up, it would eliminate 2 from all these cells, and that's called pointing. If you think about drawing a line between these 2s, that line can then be continued as if they were pointing along the rest of the row. And that's why it's called pointing. So these actually can't be 2 because the 2's over here in the row, and these can't be 2 because of this 2 here. That's not a 2. So there's a 2 down here. So actually where we considered there had to be a 2 to get rid of the 2's from here, it actually is there. This is logically accurate. We just proved it 2 different ways. So we're going to corner mark 2's here and corner mark 2's here to remind us that that's where the 2's have to go. And the important thing that these corner marks are doing for us, one of the most important things, is they are telling us that these 2 cells are not 2 when we thought that they could be, right? If I were to do this, they wouldn't turn red, but all of my corner mark 2's do, and that's bad. Okay. So that was the 2. We have 2 more to do, but I'm not gonna take my time on those, right? We already understand how it works. So this 7 is also going to have a buddy 7 down here that puts the 7 up here. You see how that works? Because we need the buddy to be in the same row as the filled row that isn't 7. Or if you prefer, this 7 looks in here. It puts a 7 in one of these 3. Those point into here along with this 7, right? Either way, we found our buddy 7. It's down there. Okay. Now, this should trigger something for you. This is something I want you to be on the lookout for every time you place a corner mark in a box, which is, did I just exactly overlap another corner mark? So in this case, we have 2 2's, 2 places for 2 in this box. We have 2 places for 7 in this box. That is 2 digits that each share the same 2 cells that they must go in, right? The 2 must go in one of these 2 cells, and the 7 must go in one of these 2 cells. And that's what our corner marks are telling us. That's what that exact overlap is telling us. When I say exact overlap, I mean not anywhere else, just these 2. And in that case, I can convert those to center marks. Now, I didn't even talk about what center marks mean, but this is the perfect time to do so. So what are we going to use center marks for? Well, the center mark is telling us in the final puzzle, this cell will be one of this list of digits. We call those candidates because they're candidates for being in that cell. So this cell will be a 2 or 7, and this cell will be a 2 or 7. It's a different statement than saying in this box, the 2 will go in one of these, or like in this box, the 7 will go in one of these 3. It's a different statement. It's a statement about the cell. This cell will be a 2 or 7. Now you can say, well, why can't it be, for example, an 8, right? If I were to put an 8 here, there's no 8 in the column, there's no 8 in the row, there's no 8 in the box. And so typically we would include 8 as an option in the center mark, right? In this case, we are not, because we have found a hidden pair in the box. And I'm going to get rid of the corner marks now, because in this box, we need to place a 2 and a 7. And if I put an 8 here, I can put a 2 or a 7 here, but the other one's going to be excluded out of the box, and that's broken our puzzle. We won't be able to solve the puzzle then. So this is not an 8, so it's not a candidate. So what a hidden technique does, even this hidden single 1, if you remember, I kind of went over that this could have been an 8. Why did we put a 1 there? And it's the same reason. A hidden technique removes options, removes candidates from the cells that you found them in. So 8 was removed. Anything that's not 2, 7 was removed as a candidate from these 2 cells. And we can just make center mark 2 7s there. Hopefully that's clear. Now we're going to continue. We had this 3 as well. So where's the 3's buddy? Well, it's down here, right? Because it needs to be in the same row as these 3. So we get a 3 here, and then in this box, the 3 is going to be in one of these, because we do have this 3 looking up. So I can corner mark those 3's as well. If you want to do it a different way, in this box, the 3's up here, that points in, the 3's down here. Okay. But now we can do more, because again, remember we're looking for filled box rows. I would consider this filled. Now, why? Because we know one of these will be 2, one of these will be 7. And so this is going to be a 5, 2, 7. And we just care that we know what the 3 digits are. They're 5, 2, and 7. there's no optionality there. So whether this ends up 2, 7 like this or 7, 2 like this, those are the two options. This is filled with 5, 2, and 7. So we can still do the same logic here. We can say, well, I don't care about non-filled cells. I could care about the pointing 3s, 7s, and 2s, but I actually don't because 3, 7, and 2 are already in the box. So we don't worry about that. We also don't care about the 2 here or the 1 here that's in the box, but we do, and we don't care about the 7 because the 7's in this row. But the 6 here, okay, so the 6 is going to need a buddy down here, and it's going to need a buddy up here. So we just fill those corner mark 6s. And you can see how that works. The 6 looks into here. None of these are 6. These are 2, 7. They can't be 6. So the 6 ends up here. Cool. And so now that handles our filled rows. The last thing we want to look for is if there is a row or a box that has been reduced to 3 or fewer open cells. And I will argue that this row is down to just these 3 open cells for the same reason I just argued. We know the 2 and 7 end up here. So however they end up filled, there really are just 3 unknown cells left in this row. We know these. So from the perspective of the row, these cells don't care whether this ends up 2, 7 or 2 or 7, 2, right? It doesn't care because no matter what, it's going to be affected by that 2 and 7. So there's only 3 digits unaccounted for here, and they're the 3, 6, and 8. So I can just fill 3, 6, 8 in the centers here. Those are the only digits left for those cells. And I don't really need these corner marks anymore because I have the 3, 6, 8 triple here, the naked triple. And that does the same job, but better. So now this is a naked 3, 6, 8 triple. What does a naked technique do? It looks at the individual cells or a group of individual cells and what we have center marked in them. So we know because of the row, but for whatever reason, it could also be just completely coincidental. We know that the 3, 6, and 8 are going to end up in these 3 cells. And we know that all 3 of them will. Because I cannot repeat the 3, I cannot repeat the 6, I cannot repeat the 8. And those are the only digits that are viable in these cells. We have marked everything that can go in these cells. And 3, 6, and 8 are the only 3 digits that can go in those cells. So this is a naked triple. Triple because it involves 3 cells. Naked because we're just looking at the candidates for those cells. And I don't know what order it'll happen in. Maybe this will be 3, 6, 8. Maybe this will be 6, 3, 8. Maybe this will be 8, 6, 3, right? We don't know. But what we do know is that 3, 6, and 8 will all 3 of them be in these 3 cells. And what does that do? That removes 3, 6, and 8 from the rest of the box because they all share the same box. Wherever the 3, 6, 8 end up, these are not going to be 3, 6, 8. And so that's what a triple does in a pair. Naked pair, naked triple. Remember how the hidden pair removed digits that were possible from the cells that you found it in? It's kind of the opposite. A naked pair or a naked triple is going to remove those digits from all the other cells in their shared row, box, or column. In this case, they share a row and a column. Share a row and a box, and so it's removed from the rest of the row and the rest of the box. None of these cells are going to be 3, 6, or 8. And you can kind of see if I just pick 3, 6, 8 for this, if I just arbitrarily pick something like that, you can see maybe more clearly that none of these cells also are 3, 6, 8 or repeat it in either the row or the box. But we can't say anything about the columns because we don't know exactly what order they resolve in, and the columns care about that. But the row doesn't care and the box doesn't care. So actually, this box is down to 3 open cells now. And so we just think about what those 3 cells are, and we're going to center mark them. So we need the 4, the 5, and the 9. And we can see now that this cell here, it's not going to be a 4 or a 9 because there's already a 4 and a 9 in the column. So this ends up being not 4 and not 9. And now what we found is called a naked single. I went over the naked triple before the naked single, but it is what it is. A naked single is when there's only one candidate left for the cell, and the candidates are telling us this is the full complete list of digits that are going to be in that cell in the final solution. That full complete list is one candidate, so it must be that candidate. So this has to be a 5. And that does remove 5 from the rest of the row in the box. We can clean that up a bit. And now you can see we have a 4, 9 naked pair here. What does that do? Well, it's going to remove 4 and 9 from the rest of the row. And you can actually think of this as however you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to shortcut a little bit. I'm going to say, well, we have this naked 4, 9 pair here. It's removed 4, 9 from these cells. And this 4, 9 has removed 4, 9 from these cells. And that's not 4, 9. Now, if we think about just the 4, this 4 also looks in here saying that's not a 4. So actually, there's only one place in this box for 4 now, which is here. And now there's only one place in this box for 9, which is here. That 4 and 9 is going to leave a pair behind here. It's the 2 digits we haven't accounted for. We know where the 2, 7 are in the box. And so we need a 6 and 8. So we just fill a center mark there. Over here, there are two digits left for the row that we haven't accounted for. So we're going to fill that as well. We need the 2 and the 8. And then up here, there's just a triple remaining for both the row and the box. And they're going to agree about what that triple is. We know it's going to involve the 3 and the 7 because of our corner marks. And the final digit is something. It's a 5. And this one's not 5 because there's a 5 in the column. And so now I would call this band done. It's not always going to happen. We got lucky with this band that it had so much to do. But I would call this band done in terms of thinking about it in a horizontally, because we have ended up with only horizontal pairs and triples that all are contained within a box. And so there's nothing horizontally that's going to ever get resolved, no matter how much we look at this. The rows and the boxes do not care what order these resolve in. And so it's got to be the rest of the puzzle that's going to tell us how they must resolve. So we got to look at the rest of the puzzle now. It's basically the conclusion. Now, one last thing I'll say about center marking. I only center mark cells that are down to 3 or fewer candidates. If you have more than 3 candidates, I would not recommend center marking it. You're going to get overwhelmed with center marks that don't mean anything. And so don't mean anything useful. All right, so now we're going to do this next band. We're going to repeat the exact same process. I'm starting here. I see that there's a duplicate 5 here. Those look into here, and it places this 5. Now I'm going to compare these two against each other, the 4 and the 5. We do see we have a duplicate 4. Those look in here. There's a 4 in one of these two. We're going to corner mark that. Now that's all the duplicates. Now we look for box rows that are filled. This box row is filled. But unfortunately down here, we just have the 5 and the pointing 4s, and that doesn't help. We already have a 4 and 5 in the box. Now we look for rows and boxes down to 4 or fewer open cells. I found one here. So what we do is we think about what the remaining digits are. That's all we're doing. We're thinking about it. We need 1, 3, 6, and 9. And now we look around for 1, 3, 6, and 9 to see if there's anything interesting about that. Well, the first thing I see is something we would have seen when we scanned the stack, but there's no reason not to do it now, is that 3 can't be here and 3 can't be here. So there actually is only one cell that can be 3. So we found a hidden single 3 here. Now there's 3 digits left here. And so that's safe to mark because we can mark 3. So we still need the 1. We have 2, 3, 4, 5. We need 6. We have 7, 8. We need 9. So we end up with a 1, 6, 9 triple remaining in the box. I did place this 3. Always good to think about whether that now has a buddy. You want to follow up on placed digits. Is there a buddy 3? There is not. Did this fill a box row? It did not. Final thing, did this cause there to be any more rows or boxes down to 4 or fewer? It did not. This row's down to 5, right? This row's down to 5. 6, actually. Okay, so now we didn't get as much out of that band as the top one. Like I said, don't always, but we got some digits. That's nice. We're going to move on to the next band. So we start with this 3 because it is the singular. This box has only 1 given, so it's easy to compare against these other 2. These 3s look in. It does place the 3 in this box, hidden single 3. Now, if we look up, when we place a digit, we always want to look at its row, column, and box and see how that affected it, especially if we already have markings. So even if I didn't have these red markings on, all these red markings are doing is reminding me, hey, take a look. You replaced the 3 in this column. You have a notated 3. That notated 3 is not possible anymore. So I can remove any notated 3s from the rest of the row, column, and box. And when I do so here, I notice that now this is a naked single 6. Now, from now on, I'm not even going to bother. In this case, I'm just going to place the 6 because I know this is a naked single 6 because it can't actually be the 3, and I can do that in my head. And that does remove 6 from the rest of the row and box. When we do that, we want to check to see if the 6, we know normally we would check horizontally, right? We would check that because, but in this case we don't, because we know that nothing horizontally is going to be helpful. Like these boxes aren't going to interact with each other horizontally anymore because I explained that earlier. But normally you would check to see if, okay, did that cause me to have buddy 6s that are important? Or did that cause me to have a filled box row? Did that cause a row or a box to be down to 4 or fewer? Because we need to go back and check the stuff we've already checked when we place a digit. Okay, so we got this 3. We're going to pair these 2 boxes against each other, the 1, 3, and 6. We already used the 3. 1 and 6, no go. But this is a filled box row, so we look for that next. We look at these, right? We already took care of the 3, but the 1 and the 6 are actually useful. One at a time, this 1 has to have a buddy down here, and that causes a 1 to be up here. And now the 6 has to have a buddy down here also. And that can go in any of these 3, and then that's going to cause a 6 to be in one of these 2. Very nice. See how that shorthand does help save us a little bit of time, so we don't have to do the pointing, right? We can just immediately place it. But if you want to, feel free to do the pointing and get the same result. If you don't remember exactly how it works. Always good to prove to yourself that what you did was logically correct. Okay, so we have the 6s and the 1s. That's it for this filled box row. Are there any rows or boxes down to 4 or fewer? I don't see any. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing we just did, but we're going to do it with stacks. So I'm going to start with this first stack over here. Just by convention, it's the first stack. This 5, there is no 5 in either of these worth talking about. We have the 1, 3, and 6 we can pair up here. We have the 1 and the 6. So these 1s look in. So 1 and 1 of these 2. These 6s look in. There's a 6 somewhere down here in one of these 3. And now do we have any filled box columns? Because anytime I said row, I'm now going to say column. Do I have any filled box columns? No. Do I have any columns or boxes down to 4 or fewer? No, I do not. Okay. Move on to the next stack. So we start with this 4, 5. The 4 does not have any buddies, but the 5 does. It's got this buddy here. So 5 and 1 of these 2. Now we have this 2, 3, 8, 9. We compare against this box up here, which we haven't compared against yet. We do have a 2 buddy. And in fact, that places the hidden 2 in this box. Immediately follow up, right? First thing, I have a buddy for this 2 now. Those look in. That puts a 2 in one of these 3. Now, did I fill up a box row? I did not. Did I cause a row or a box to be down to 4 or fewer? I did not. So that was the follow-up. So we had the 2 buddy, 3, 8, or 9. No, we don't have buddies for those. Okay. Did I fill a box column anywhere? I actually did not. Do I have any columns or boxes down to 4 or fewer? Yeah, this column is down to 3. You always want to start with the ones that's most restricted. It's going to be the most likely to do something. So what are the 3 digits missing from this column? They are the 4, the 7, and the 9. So I can just fill 4, 7, 9 here, and I can clean this up because there's a 9 in this box and there's a 4 in this row. Okay. Any other columns restricted? This is down to 5. This is down to a bunch. Boxes, no, we already took care of this box. This box has 5 remaining. So we can move on. Over here, the 3s are done. So we just have to compare these 2 against each other. We've got the 1, 3, 4, 9, 5, right? So 1 does not have a buddy. 3 we already talked about. 4 does have a buddy. The 5, so it's the 4 and the 5. So let's do those. These 4s look down. And then these 5s look down. Put the 5s here. All right. Any columns? Any filled box columns? Yes, this one's filled. So we want to look more closely at these. These don't count. These don't count. Okay, the 3 is done. 4 and 5 we already took care of, so there's nothing more to do there. All right, and any columns or boxes down to 4 or fewer open cells? Yes, this column is down to 4. It's going to be the 2, 5, 6, 7. And something I notice immediately because of my corner marks here is that 6 can only go in one of the cells. This one's not 6 because there's a 6 here. This one's not 6 because there's a 6 here. Why couldn't this be 6? Remember, we had our fake buddy. Our fake buddy is down here. And there's a 6 in one of these 2. So these 6s point in, or if you prefer, our buddy down here claims the box and says that the rest of the box can't be 6 because this row needs a 6, right? So that could be claiming as well. But either way, these are not 6. And so for the column, this is the only 6. So it must be. So that's a hidden 6 in the column, which does clean up these 6s here. And so now we actually found where 6's buddy is. It's right there. The rest of the column is 2, 5, 7. So we're just going to fill that now. Okay, that was helpful. Now, that follow up on the 6. Obviously, we already have these 6s marked. We just talked about that. Did it fill up a box row or a box column? No. Did it cause a row or a box or a column to be down to 4 or fewer? No. Okay. So I believe that is it for our initial pass on scanning. Sometimes that finishes the puzzle. Sometimes it doesn't, like in this case. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go box by box, and we're going to see if we missed anything a little bit more subtle about what's going on in that box. So I'm going to ignore any boxes that we know complete information about. either because it's completely filled or because basically there's no corner marking that's going to be useful to find because we've already fully center marked the box with useful pairs and triples and stuff. So we're going to ignore the top 3 boxes. I'm also going to ignore boxes with only a single given in them. We'll get back to that in a moment if we need to. But because there is something interesting about this box, which is that this cell is not any of those corner marks. And you know what? I think that's something fair to look at. Like, this is an extreme example. You can see we have a ton of corner marks in this box, and none of them are here. So it's worth just thinking about what can this cell be? Maybe you found a naked single or a really restricted cell. So just think about what it can be, and start with the corner marks. It can't be 1, 2. The corner marks say it could be 3, but actually it can't be. There's one in the column. Can't be 4 either. There's a 4 corner mark too. 5 and 6 are accounted for. So really it's just 7, 8, and 9 that the box thinks it could be, but actually it can't be 8 or 9. So actually this is a naked single 7. And I'm not super surprised because of all these corner marks telling us it's not any of those digits. It was already restricted. And then it sees the 8 and the 9 in addition to that, and the 3. So this is a naked single 7. It can only be a 7. It sees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. So it is a 7. We can place that. Now that 7 does 2 things. It makes this a naked single 5, and it also makes this a naked single 9. That 9 makes this a 4 and a 9. Like I said, stuff down here is going to resolve our pairs and triples, right? And that's exactly what's happening. This 4 also finishes off the column with a 7. That's not a 7. Now we just got a bunch of digits. Make sure we follow up. I'm going to start with this 7 here. It has a buddy. This 7 looks down. That places this 7. We also place this 9. Does the 9 have a buddy? It does not appear to. Okay. This 7 we placed as well. There's no buddy. So yeah, I don't think the 7 does anything immediately. This 7, now we also can look vertically because we already did this stack. So does the 7 have a buddy? No. But what it did do is it reduced this column down to 3 open cells. I wonder why I didn't mark it when it was down to 4. Oh, I think I got this 5 and this 7, right? So that's what did it. So now it's down to 3, so we should center mark that. We need a 2, 4, and 8. I'm seeing that this is the only cell that can be 2 because we have these 2 2s looking in. So let's place the 2. And then we're down to 4, 8. I'm just going to center mark that now before I forget. But we do want to follow up on the 2. Nothing for the band. What about for the stack? No, I'm not seeing much for the stack. Okay. And so now this box is down to 4 or fewer. So let's talk about that. We need the 1, 3, 6, and 8. I'm looking for 1s, 3, 6s, and 8. I see this 3. So this 3 looks in here. These 2 aren't 3. So the 3 is actually one of these 2. We can corner mark that. And when we do so, we notice that it points. It points at the rest of the column. So actually this cell here, no matter where this 3 ends up, this cell will not be a 3. Give me a moment. Since it's not a 3, it must be an 8, because it's the only candidate left. So that's a naked single 8, that's a 3. Hopefully you're seeing how that's working. What were the other digits here? We needed 1, 3, 6, and 8. So I'm looking for other 1, 3, 6s, and 8s. I see this cell can't be 8. And since it's down to 4 and it can't be one of them, we can just fill the others, 1, 3, 6. This can be, none of these can be 8, actually. Now that we place this 8, none of these 3 are 8, which means there's only one cell left that can be 8, so it must be. We can place that 8. That makes this a 4, so that we can remove the corner mark 4 there. That makes this an 8. Lots to follow up on. Let's do this 1, 3, 6 triple here first, because that affects the rest of the column. Removing 1, 3, and 6 from the rest of the column, that's a naked triple. We went over that. One of these will be 1, one of these will be 3, one of these will be 6. Because of that, we can't have more 1, 3s, and 6s in the column. So this is not 1, that places 1 in the box, and this is not 6, that places 6 in the box. And that leaves behind a pair, the 2 digits that aren't accounted for in this column, and they are the 4 and 5. Okay, don't need the corner marks anymore. We're wrapping up, basically. I did get this 8, it has a buddy. So there's an 8, one of these 2. Okay. I'm thinking about whether we follow up. Sorry, my cough drop is ending. Okay, so I think when you're this done with the puzzle, sometimes it's more fruitful just to see if you've got rows, columns, boxes down to 4 or fewer, and just pay attention to those first. If you run out of those, if you really run out of things to do, go back and rescan the juicy looking bands and stacks. But in this case, I've got like this row to look at. I've got this row to look at. I've got a lot I can look at. So this row is down to 136. So I can just center mark that 136. That's not a 1. That's not a 6. And I'm looking to see if these cells match up and happen to make pairs or triples or anything that are useful. This is down to 169, but it can't be a 1. So this is 6 or 9 only. Again, looking to see if that does anything helpful. Any other rows, columns, boxes that look good? This row is down to 4, so let's think about it. We need 1, 4, 5, and 7. This one's not 4 or 5 or 1, so this is a naked single 7. Because we wanted 1, 4, 5, 7. This can't be any of those other than 7. So that's a 7. It resolves this 3, 7. When you place a 3 in the corner, even if it's wrong, the game celebrates with a DT2 there because of a pun on that's 3 in the corner, that's 3 in the spotlight. It sounds like that's me in the corner, that's me in the spotlight. Anyway, that's a 1 because it's not a 3 anymore, so that's not a 1. And I'm going to do this a little bit faster from here because it's all the same stuff, right? So this column is now down to 2. It's down to 2, 8, 9. So we can clean that up a little bit. Okay. 3, 6, 8, 9 here. I think it can be any of them. Okay, so I'm not going to mark that. This row is down to 3 digits, the 1, the 4, and the 5. This one's not the 1, so it's down to 4, 5. Neither of these are 5. We see both of them see a 5, so actually the 5 in the row goes here. And now these are down to 1, 4. We can already see this one can't be 4 because of our corner marks, so that's the 1, that's the 4. That places the 1 in this box. These aren't 1s. 3, 6 pair. This is a 1 now. The only place for 1. We have this 6, 9 pair here. That's going to look up, removing 6 from here. That makes that an 8. That resolves the 8 in this box. Here we're down to 2, 7. Can't be 7, so that's 2. That's 7. That's 2. That's a 5. Oops, that's a 5 and a 7. That's 4 and 5. This is a 9. That resolves this 2, 8, 9 triple. That resolves this pair. I think this whole box resolves. This is a something. Oh, it's an 8. This 3, 6 got resolved. This 6, 9 got resolved. And then we have 2 digits. We'll have to place 4 and 9, and they go like that. There we go. So the systematic solve got us most of the way there. And then we just had to take a look at each box. And there was a really suspicious cell in this box, which ended up being a naked single 7. And so that finished the puzzle for us, finding this naked single 7. From there, we just had to focus on rows, columns, boxes with 4 or fewer, and the puzzle finished. So very nice. In terms of things we found a lot of pointing. A lot of these filled box rows that were super helpful. Maybe some box columns. I forget if any box columns ended up helpful. But that ended up being very powerful, especially finding that in this column, the 6 could only be here, which we only found because of this filled box row and this 6, right? Having that information already in the box in corner marks just immediately told us what was going on there. Because I had the 6 corner marked only here. It wasn't here. So I already knew, because I had this center marked without a 6, and then I already knew that these 2 weren't 6 because they weren't corner marked with 6s, and a corner mark 6 existed. That means that this had to be 6. And so it really helps speed up your solve. I, of course, sat there and explained it. But if you're not sitting there explaining it to a bunch of people who need to understand how it works, then it goes a lot faster. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this was educational. And if you did, then why not leave a like, subscribe, and a kind comment below.